Hello, hello. This is my first time streaming. Looks like we got a couple of folks here. Uh, Hi, I'm Mark. My name is Mark Borstein. I'm CTO at Trumbull Security, and this is going to be where we will be, at least starting next week, streaming the labs from Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide 3rd edition. So this week, we're not going to do a lab. We're actually going to have some fun with Sidero. We are going to work a little bit with Talos Linux in my lab. So if you're not familiar with Talos Linux, it's a Linux, it's a Kubernetes, it's both. It's really cool because it is this Kubernetes distro combined with a Linux distro that all it does is Kubernetes. And so it's very small, it's very tiny. So the use case I like it for in my lab is I do a lot with Kubernetes. I deploy a lot of containers or clusters rather. And so one of the things I really like to do is I spin up a node and I deploy Kubernetes onto a single node cluster onto it. I deploy Nginx, I start messing with it, and then I roll it out. And then once I'm done, I tear the whole thing down. So I'm rebuilding my lab and I want to do it around something a little easier, a little quicker. And so after talking with Kat Morgan on the awesome Cargo Discord channel, which you should totally join if you haven't, she gave me the idea like, well, why don't you just use Talos control and do it that way instead of the way I do it today, which is to use Metal as a service to provision a VM, then go ahead and deploy. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to mess with that. I started doing some reading, and I found that if you go ahead and run, if you run Talos, you can do it against KVM or QEMU, libvirtd on a Linux distro. So yeah, I'm going to start messing around with that. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to get to. Ideally, we'll get to a point where I can just roll out a single node cluster with Ingress on it and be able to connect to it, and maybe even roll out OpenUnison to it. If we get really adventurous, maybe we'll start looking at iSCSI, but we might do that another day. So I'm going to keep this to an hour. So however far we get by 1 o'clock is however far we get. So with that, I'm going to make this a little bit better. Can I move that? I don't like that there. Now, the other thing is to point out is that this is my first time streaming. And so a lot of this is going to be some trial and error. So I think I'm actually just, you guys don't need to look at me while I'm talking, right? Okay. And, feel free to say hi in a comment or whatever. I will see it and I will say hi back. Ask questions. And yeah, I will be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. So, all right, let's get started. So I am SSH'd into my host, my QEMU host, and I'm just going to hide that because that's really annoying to me. And what I am now going to do is, so the Talos control command, right? Talos control. So this is what you use to interact with your Talos cluster. And if I was running this on my local Mac, what would be really cool is I've got Docker Desktop installed, do a Talos control cluster create, and it's just going to spin up a 2-node cluster, one control plane, one worker node. Now, I have not tried this yet. It's supposed to work locally with QEMU as well. So let's see what happens. So cluster create. And it's doing something. Okay, so it's trying to talk to Docker. We don't want to do Docker. So let's see here. Commands. So local or QEMU-based Kubernetes cluster. How do I tell it to use QEMU? That's the real question here. All right, let's see what we get here with good old Google. Talos control, QEMU, install, or QEMU cluster create. All right. Well, here's getting started. Let's see here. I don't want to do that. Configuration? No. Maybe? No. I want how-tos? No. Installation? Here we go. Virtualized platforms. So this is using Vagrant and libvirt. Bring it down here so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I found this while Googling, where it can use Vagrant. And I'll be honest, I have not used Vagrant in years. I was never a big Vagrant user, and I was, hey, Vladimir, let's see, can I? Yeah, I can show that. Hey, welcome to the party. So, and then, okay, so I'll hide that again. So I am testing out this streaming software. So it's going to be a little touch and go here as I figure this out. Okay, so so this is using Vagrant. I used to use Vagrant when I first started working with Kubernetes, like 2015, and the only way that you could quickly launch a cluster that gave you access to the API, the API server flags, was through a Vagrant script. Like there's no way, no other way to do it. Like there was no kube spray, none of that worked. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Minikube because it's a little too easy, right? Like I like to get to those API server flags. So I'm testing OpenID Connect. Yeah, so I don't really use Vagrant, and this says create a local Docker-based or QEMU-based Kubernetes cluster. So this should work. All right, well, I got a lot of options here. Let's see if grep QEMU or nope, create help. All right, so so the launch VM. So like, is there like a flag that lets me set that I want QEMU versus Docker? Because I don't want Docker. I want QEMU. But there doesn't seem to be like a mode. Let's see here. Let's ask ChatGPT. That's usually the first place I go these days. On a QEMU server, how do I use Talos control cluster create? There is no Docker. All right, so I've got Talos. All right, so this is telling me to basically do this manually. um, which was not what I was expecting. I'm gonna be honest. I don't see here. All right, so ChatGPT is saying that to use Talos control create, I basically have to create a cluster config, get the image, and then upload it. So, all right, so it's not quite as easy as if we were doing okay, that's all right. That's not a big deal. We're having fun, right? That's the idea. Ooh, ow, shoulder. All right. So let's go ahead and let's grab the latest ISO. And I believe they're on 1.9.1. No. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it this way. Let's go to talos.dev. Actually, why don't I do it this way so you can see it? So let's go to talos.dev and let's go to releases, the 1.9 release. And where do I get the ISOs? Introduction, getting started. I have Talos control. All right, Linux boot image. So I'm going to grab the x86. Now we're going to grab the metal one for now. Once I do get to the point where I'm doing, storage, one thing that's really important to understand about Talos is that there are no user tools. Hey, Marino. I hid my camera because like this I thought was kind of annoying when I'm trying to like type stuff and I can't quite seem to figure out where to put me. Can I put me up here? No. Can I like move me? No. Maybe if I do this, is that no? I definitely don't want to do that. That maybe? Okay, maybe that's a little bit better. How about we do that? So yeah, so hopefully, Maria, you can see my camera now. Yeah, so what's important to understand about Talos, or one of the important things to understand about Talos is it's got like 12 commands, right? Like 12 binaries in it. And none of them are the iSCSI tools. And oh, what happened to my monitor? My second monitor just died. Oh, no, we're back. Okay. That was weird. I don't know if y'all saw that. So I had a issue this morning where I came into my office, and over the weekend I had set up my office to make streaming a little bit better. And this morning when I plugged in my nice monitor, it died. So rest in peace, my friend. You will be missed. But my other monitor seems to be a little squirrely today. So anyway, Talos does not have the binaries for different types of storage, one of them being iSCSI. So I've got a TrueNAS scale appliance in the lab that'll be hooking up with it. I had previously gotten a Synology integrated with it using a CSI, but it does require that you need a special ISO with the iSCSI tools in it. And I'm going to get to that later, but so for now, we're just going to go with the simple image. So I've got the ISO, so that's step one. And I'm going to be lazy and just go ahead and let's just launch this manually. Like, let's not go too crazy. All right. So what am I doing? I just downloaded this. So I am going to move this metal to var libvert d libvert images, I think. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fire up a new VM. So I'm going to do this. Oops, where'd it go? Why did it go back up there? Yeah. Oh, interesting. I can't seem to put my, that's interesting. Okay, so I'll have to do this one off screen. All right, so we're going to do local install. And browse. Maybe. See what happens. Well, that's thinking. I'm going to come back here to the Vagrant setup. What is this saying? So it wants 2 CPUs, 2 gig of memory, and 4 gig of storage. That's pretty good. I usually do 50 gig of storage, so we'll go with that. Let's see, did this open up? It did. All right. I don't remember what do we call this thing? This was called Metal AMD 64. Here we go. I'm going to choose that, and we'll do 2 gig. I'm actually going to give it 4 gig because there's a method to my madness. We'll do 2 CPUs. That's fine. And then we'll do I know it's probably more than I need, but I'm going to do 50 gig because I'd rather just have more now than I need. So we're going to call this thing, I don't know why this thing wants to be called Alma Linux 9. That's interesting. But we're going to call this Talos control plane. Maybe. Should probably figure out how to do this from the command line. Talos test. All right, and let's click finish. I know you can't see this. Unfortunately, I can't seem to get my Vert Manager on the screen. Can I just, if I move everything? All right, so this is starting up. Can I share this? Because, okay. So that one I could put on. Okay, so now you can see Talos is starting up. I always love watching this part of Talos. Now this does not like connectivity. So let's see what we got for networking here. So it's virtual networking. That shouldn't be a big deal. DHCP is set up. So let's see. Let's go to network config, I guess. Was it F3? Not going to get me there? No. So what happens? No. Function F3? Or no, this is function. All right. So, so it doesn't see the interface. Probably the first problem. All right. So now it sees the interface. And we'll do DHCP for now. I'm not going to go too nutty. And what do we got going on here? We got connectivity. We got an IP address. So it sees my DNS servers and it can connect. So that's good. That's up here. So now we are going to hang out for a few minutes while we wait for Talos to go ahead and set itself up. Yeah, I've not done this in a long time. So let's see, where are we? So we got Talos control up and running. Server certificate issued. So I think we're just waiting for it to, well, no, it says it's ready. So I think at this point we can actually go ahead and start getting Talos set up. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So Talos is ready to configure. So let's go. We're going to do this. We're doing this manually. All right, configure. So we are going to do, let me make this a little bit bigger. All right, so we're going to do a Talos control gen config. Do I even have a cluster name? Well, I guess I got to set a cluster name. So we'll do Talos control gen config, and we'll call this Talos test. And our endpoint. So the endpoint, so I guess it would be HTTPS, and we're running on, what's our IP address? IP is 136, so 192.168.2.136.6443. All right, let's see what happens. So we're generating PKI and tokens. Okay, so that did something. And then what do we got over here? Nothing new happened. All right, cool. So we got our config. And then when you run the command, 3 files are created in your current directory. So let's see, are they in my current directory? They are. Sweet. So I got control plane, worker.yaml, and Talos config. The modifying machine config. So control plane.yaml. All right. So now, one thing I do remember is, so here's the Talos configuration file. And then there was a worker, or no, control plane. All right. So there's the token, kubelet. Now I seem to remember, so I like single node clusters because I spin them up quickly. I do stuff and I shut them down, and I don't really like I don't deal with load balancers for the most part. The clusters just aren't that permanent. So I am going to want to do a single node cluster. And so what I need to do, and it's been a while since I've done this, is in Talos, how do I mark a control plane node as schedulable? So there's Talos control, and then there's control plane. Here we go. So what I want to do is allow scheduling control plane. So let's see. Allow scheduling. Here we go. Cool. So we are going to set this to true. And so that'll let me schedule nodes directly onto my control plane, which obviously production, big no, don't do that. When I first started playing around with Talos, I would try to do this by just removing the taint, but then Talos would put it right back on. So you got to do it here in the machine config. So I've got that. So now I think I just want to apply it. Is that my next step? Yes. We are going to go ahead and apply the config. So we'll do a Talos control apply config insecure. And then we're going to go to 192.168.2.136. And our file is controlplane.yaml. All right, let's go ahead and that didn't give me any feedback. What's going on here? Whoa, we got a lot going on here. So we are now rebooting our Talos configuration. That's cool. No bootable device. Oh, I bet what happened is it thought that we were going to do. All right. So let's go ahead and shut down, force off. Yes, force that off. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go to boot options. And we want to do that. We want to move that up. Because, with Talos, you're booting off of that ISO. Even though you're installing it, it still needs to be there to boot off of. So, at scale, you'd probably use something like Pixie to boot off of it over the network. Let's try this again. Could not read. Oh, you know why? Nope, I don't want to pause it. Let's go ahead and force off. So CD-ROM. Let's make sure that's connected. Apply. Now let's go ahead and try booting. And we're going to boot off Talos ISO. That's a little better. So what do we got going on here? We got issued the certificate. So it applied the config, I think. If we run this again, it's probably, okay, it's going to do a reboot. So that's applying the config. So I think the next thing we need to do is worker. Okay. So you can verify which disks you have by using Talos control get disks. All right. So we are back up and running. So let's see here. If we run this command, Failed to determine endpoint. Probably because and 192.168.2.136. There's probably some shortcut I can do. But okay, so I got 3 disks. All right, and then what does it say it wants me to do? Modify. All right, so we want to tell it where to install. So let's go to control plane. And it's going to be dev VDA. So let's find install. No. Disk. Here we go. So we want to do dev VDA, not dev SDA, which makes sense. All right, so we've got that. I guess we want to apply it again. And then we bootstrap. Okay. And then let's see, is there anybody up here asking questions? No, nobody's asking questions. How are we? Half hour through. That's actually not terrible. I think it took me about 3 hours to do this the first time when I first started playing around with it. So, all right. So let's go ahead and apply the configuration again. And that's going to reboot this. And, so this is going to be a bit of a problem, right? So let's go ahead and change my IP information. We're going to have to try this over again. So we're going to call this Talos test. First, let's go ahead and set that. And we're going to have to do static. We'll do 192.168.2.136/24. 192.168.2.1. 192.168.276. 192.168.2.25. We'll just do time.nist.gov. All right. Nothing to save. Character gateway. Oh. You know, AI should really figure this out, or like if I make a stupid mistake like that, just fixes it. I'm really disappointed in Sodero for not having that AI integrated in there. Okay, so we're back at 36, and let's see here. So let's go ahead and wait for this to finish. Oh, okay. So this is like, what's going on here? Is this is booting? Oh, so this is actually installing itself. Yay! All right, we can see down here that it's going. It's not ready, but it's going. But we have a kubelet. So this is going to take a few minutes. Oh, still have to run the bootstrap. Okay, so we're going to still run the bootstrap. I thought so. Thought I hadn't lost my mind. Well, I probably lost my mind. Can't lose something I never had. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bootstrap this. So we'll do Talos control bootstrap nodes 192.168.2.136. And then endpoints 192.168.2.136. And then Talos config. Right. So let's see what happens. Nothing. Once more with feeling. Well, I didn't get any errors. So I'm assuming something over here is happening. So stage is now running. So something's happening. And it looks like we are setting stuff up. Something's happening. So I'm guessing we're going to let this go for a minute. So I don't know if anybody's out there and wants to ask some questions. Now's a good time while we're waiting for Talos to run. It's doing something. Like it's going. All right. Ooh, look at this. We have a healthy API server, a healthy controller manager, and a healthy scheduler. Rock on. So while this is going, I suspect we're getting there pretty close. So far, what I've learned is one, I got to start with the ice. I've got to uh, manually create, or not manually, but I've got to automate the creation of the Quemu image or the Quemu machine, the host. So that's the difference between when you run on Docker versus running against Quemu. Is Talos control will interact with Quemu, but it looks like you still need to provision everything yourself. It's probably why Vagrant comes into play. Need to make sure you use a static IP. We saw that when we rebooted, I lost the IP there. I ended up going in and manually setting it. So one thing I want to do is make sure to update that. We've got to set the disk in the Talos config. Talos will generate a generic configuration file that is, it doesn't seem to know where things are on the server that we're installing it, which not a big deal. And then because I like single node clusters, we've got to make sure to mark it as schedulable. So once we do all that stuff, and I'm sure if we start poking around the Vagrant, we'll be able to find a way to do that. I'm a little curious. How are we doing here with performance? Like, is this thing doing anything? Where's man, something's going on. So it says that we've got a healthy API server, but it is itself not yet running or ready. Yeah, I mean, it's there. So give this another minute or 2. So while we're waiting for this, so this is not in the book, Kubernetes and Enterprise Guide, 3rd edition. I know you see it up there in the upper right-hand corner. That's because this channel is going to be used for that starting next week. We're going to start going through the labs. So this is kind of that trial run. Scott can't join me this week. That's why we didn't do the whatchamacallit this week because or the stream this week because he's on vacation. So when he returns next week, we're going to stream the first chapter, Docker installation. We'll have some fun talking about Docker and kind of what's been going on in that world. And so we're going to stream all the labs. Each chapter has multiple labs. So like the Docker chapter is going to be pretty easy. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that one. But as we get more advanced, probably chapter 4 will be the first time that like we're really like, hey, this is a big chapter. We should probably, we should probably get that working. So it looks like this problem with time. Is that the issue? Getting timeout. It's a better time server. Maybe that's my problem. I can just change the time server. NIST time servers. All right, so this is in Maryland. So why don't we just do this? Let's see here. That might make things a little bit easier. Function F3. So one thing I don't like is that you lose the info. It doesn't come with you. And we're going to do time-a-g.nist.gov. Cursor. Let's come back down here. You're not going to do DHCP 2168 136/24 92.168.2.1. All right. See if that starts working a little bit better. Come on, Talos. That's where you get that meme, the dude with the stick. Yeah. Come on, move. And it says everything is healthy, but it doesn't seem to want to come up. You know what? Maybe we'll force a reboot. Let's give that a try. Kids don't do this in production. We're just going to kill it. And then go ahead and start back up. All right, she's booting. All right, she's booting into Talos. Let's see what goes on here. So it's starting up. Please reboot from the disk. Oh, interesting. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. So this is not what I was expecting. So I'm going to force off. And let's see what happens if I do this. So we'll go to boot options. And let's set that way. Apply. And so now we're going to boot off of the disk. Oh, it's booting off the disk. That's a good sign. All right, and it is starting up. I feel like I missed a step somewhere. But this is farther than we got in the last reboot. So let's see what happens. Yeah, anybody who's out there, please feel free to say hello. Ask questions. I might have answers. All right, so what we got going on here? We're adjusting time. So we're getting past the time problem that we had. That's a good sign. So it looks like, well, we got controller timeout because it's probably starting up. See up here, 17% CPU, 13% RAM. So, okay, we're getting there. So we got a healthy controller manager. We got a healthy API server. We're waiting for the scheduler to come up. So it says the machine is ready. Sweet. All right. So I see all greens. We should be able to get a Kubernetes config now, I think. So I bootstrapped it. And then here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and download it. So it'll be Talos control kube config. Let's do Talos control. Kube config. Talos control kube config, right? Yeah, that works. Kube control get nodes. I don't actually have kube control installed. That's funny. ls.kube config. So let's go ahead and just going to be lazy, everybody. I'm just going to move this over here to my local workstation. So scp vert at 2.141 home vert, not Bert, home vert.kube config. We'll copy that to kube config. Let's see what we got here. Oh, helps if I, there we go. All right, so get node. Hey, look at that. We've got nodes. We've got that pods A. All right, so we got kube control working. Let's make sure the network's working. So I'm going to go ahead and set up Ingress Nginx. So we'll do, I'm lazy. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get that running. So we should be able to deploy that. Now this, assuming that I did this correctly to schedule on the control plane node, should give us no issues. All right. Get pods and Ingress Nginx. All right, so we got pod that's running. So I'm going to go ahead and Unison, identity providers, no documentation, no ingresses. So I like to include command that lets us go ahead and patch it. Oh, that's right. Pod security. Okay, so that's probably not going to work. So a good, get event and Ingress Nginx. So let's see, is this actually going to work? I'm assuming that this didn't work. Yeah, failed. So what's happening here is that Talos deploys with pod security standards, pod security emissions, which is the replacement for pod security policies. And so because Ingress Nginx, I'm telling it to run on port 80 and 443 on the host. Linux is saying, or Kubernetes is saying, no, we're not going to allow that. So we've got to patch it. And I'm pretty sure patch. Here we go, because I was doing this the other day. So here is the patch that I'm going to run to just tell the namespace. I want it to be a privileged namespace. So now it's a privileged namespace. We've said that it's we're going to enforce the privileged level policy. So now we can see here, yep, 9 seconds ago. So we're firing up. That's a good sign. Let's see here. All right, so can I get to it? X dot 192.168.236.nip.io. So anyone who's not familiar, we do this in the book. We use 136. We use nip.io pretty extensively in the book. It is a great service that lets you turn any IP address into a DNS name. It's a privacy nightmare because you're telling this DNS server all your IP addresses, but in a fix, it works great. I love it. And the only downside is it's also used by a lot of malware to create host names for themselves. So there are a lot of corporate networks that'll block it. So we've got Nginx. So let's go ahead and finish this off. Let's get OpenUnison running. So I'm going to grab fire up code here. All right, we don't need all these windows open. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new window. And open recent is going to be this one work? Maybe? No. All right. File open. Go away. File open. So we're going to go to projects. I'm going to do OpenUnison. OpenUnison ARM will work. And we're going to do a save as. OpenUnison Talos. Then, code, go away. Stop that. Stop. Bad code. All right, now we're going to replace these with RIP 192.168.2.136. And we're going to do impersonation, JetStack. Got my certificate in there already. All right, nothing too crazy. Got my Active Directory integrated because we're not going too nuts here. This is going to be a very basic setup. I just want to make sure everything works. All right, and then let's go ahead and create a new terminal. Okay, get nodes. All right, so let's go back here. Deploy the authentication portal. Go ahead and run the dashboard install. All right, and then echo -n. Always use -n when you're running echo to create a secret. Install auth portal, secret temp LDAP S, documents, projects. What do I call this? OpenUnison Talos. Open. Oh, you know what? Silly Mac. There we go. All right, so this should hopefully take a minute, and then we'll call it a day. And I see no reason why this wouldn't work, but that'll give us our full stateless test bed. So while this is running, so I've got to take a look at the. Let's look at this. Let's look at this libvirt and what's going on here. So using Vagrant, configure the control plane, sets it up. So this is going to be on the server where that is. I'll do the boot. And then, so I'll be running. So I'll get the DHCP. This is still fairly complex. Well, it'll probably always be dev VDA. That's probably a safe. So okay, so install disk. So what I got to look at is, can I automate setting the interface? So this wants to edit. So what I really want is I want to be able to automate this part. This is a lot of manual steps I just don't want to do. Although my guess is I could generate this one config And then, well, but then you still have the issues with the because it puts the keys in there. I'll have to play around with that. How are we doing over here? This is almost done. This will be done in a moment. Okay, now it's OpenUnison's deployed. Oops, we had some failures. Let's see if trying again. Okay, so that worked. So probably what happened was just the webhook catching up. This is just setting up the HTML pod that just stores all of our. Okay, cool. So let's see. This should work. Advance, proceed. All right, so I'm going to log in with Mosley. Kubernetes dashboard. Probably going to complain that I don't have any permissions, which is okay. Yeah, it's complaining I don't have any permissions. Knows who I am, so that's a good sign. And let's go ahead and grab a token. Let's create a new export kube config, get make temp, get nodes. Right, doesn't work. Get nodes. I should get unauthorized. Yep. So it's talking to the API server. Cool. So everything works. Gotta play around with the automation a bit because this takes a little bit longer right now than my bootstrap with Ansible. But hey, we got it up and running. So cool. Thank you, everybody, and who came along and said hello and got some of the kinks out of the streaming process. And we will see you next week for Chapter 1, Docker, Kubernetes Enterprise Guide, 3rd edition. Scott Tsarovich will be joining me. We're going to have a lot of fun. Have a great rest of your day.